The trains are a long-term solution to Lagos traffic challenges.
This is where we take the
Thanks for staying with us. President Donald Trump is closing out the week with troops on the border, immigration officers launching raids, and more immigrants at risk of deportation. Trump promised voters his first day in office would see mass deportations bigger than any in American history. While things did not happen that quickly, he set in motion efforts to follow through on his pledge. The result has been heightened fear in immigrant communities, cheers from supporters, announcements from city and state officials staking out the roles they will play in assisting or not with immigration enforcement, and multi-front legal fights over Trump's actions and executive orders. And the week started with Trump rescinding the executive orders that President Joe Biden enacted on immigration, including those that built legal pathways for record numbers of migrants arriving at the border in recent years. Trump also signed a slew of his own, most prominently declaring the emergency on U.S. southern border and seeking to stop children born in the U.S. to some immigrants from gaining automatic American citizenship, the latter of which a federal judge temporarily blocked. On Thursday, some of the 1,500 Army and Marines personnel the Department of Defense announced would be sent to the southwest border arrived in El Paso, Texas, and San Diego. On Friday, two massive C-17 military cargo planes shuttled people who migrated from Guatemala out of the country. ICE was also making a show of force with arrests around the country, most visibly workplace raids in Newark, New Jersey, which included the questioning and detaining of U.S. citizens as well. All right, let's bring in our guests. We have Dr. Joel Kemia. He's a doctoral researcher. He joins us via Zoom from the UK. Good to have you join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we also have Melvin Foot, the President, Constituency for Africa. He joins us also via Zoom from Atlanta, US. Good to have you join us as well.
Great to be here.
So let me begin with you, Mr. Foot, because you live in the US. We're seeing a flurry of policy change and new policies as well from the Trump administration. Just when you think that, look, this is the one that is going to be the focus, I mean, he announces another one. How are Americans reacting to this, and what do you make of it?
Well, we really are in shock. I live in Washington, but I'm visiting Atlanta. We're in shock, and all across the country. Although this is what President Trump had talked he was going to do, they've been working on this for really 4 years, and so it's well organized, well defined. And, we've been hearing that these are the things that Trump is going to do, but we're not ready for it. We somehow just thought that once he become president, if he was to win the election, he would go back to business as usual. And that's all talk and no action. But this time around, it seemed to be bent on some specific action that he defines as making America great again, or making America first. And so we're very much in shock. Everybody you talk to, be it African American, African immigrant, or liberal Democrats, are all in shock with the rapid
Mr.
pace
Foot,
of
if I may come in, because you're saying that people are in shock, and I'm wondering why, because he did mention that this is what he was going to do. Even before he started his campaign, he always said this is what he was going to do. During the campaign, he mentioned it. Were Americans not expecting that he was going to do what he said he was going to do?
That's true, and that's very true. I mean, a lot of times the politicians are talking, and we hear what they're saying, but a lot of time it's just rhetoric. And then when the reality sets in, they go back to business as usual. But in this case, he was able to win the majority in Congress. He was able to already win the majority in the Supreme Court. And all of the legislative bodies he's controlling right now. So in order for him to do these things, all he needs is a simple majority of his MAGA Republican Party to get done what he wants to do. So from the Republican standpoint, this is their golden opportunity to make the changes that they think this country needs. But for those of us out here, we've seen Republicans go. I've seen George Bush. I've seen them come and I've seen them go. And you don't see much change in terms of U.S. policy. There might be a tweaking here, a tweaking there, but not the changes that Trump is trying to put forth right now.
Let me bring in Dr. Joel into the conversation. Dr. Joel, some of these issues, especially, the one that has to do with DACA, that's for children born to immigrants in the U.S., no longer getting automatic citizenship. That's a constitutional issue. For some, I've listened to some analysts saying President Trump is trying to test the waters. But, in my head, I'm thinking he was in office for 4 years, was in office for another 4 years. He's had enough time to perfect his policies. Is he testing the waters, or do you think that this is something he really wants to achieve?
Well, once again, thank you for having me. And like you said, Trump is actually really testing the waters, because considering the 14th Amendment, all right, and this is the issue about birth and citizenship. It's something that that predates even the president himself. This is something that's over 150 years old. And I'm sure his handlers or advisors may have told him that this thing is subject to so much litigation, because I'm not even surprised at the moment there are over 5 court cases relating to this executive order or administrative fiat, hoping to take effect from the 19th. So we are hoping that before the 19th of February, where this is supposed to take full force, we just hope the court will rule against it, because this is strictly a constitutional matter, which an executive order cannot override. And given the rigid nature of the American Constitution, I don't think Trump will likely get away with this, because the law did not, specify that whether the child is the mother or the father is non-immigrant or anything like that. Any child born in the U.S. soil automatically becomes a U.S. citizen. So I think in the coming days, we will see this issue, brushed up in court and all of that. And my fear basically about some of the executive orders, aside this DACA one you've just mentioned, the implication it will have, or the impact it will have on the American polity, is the fact that he's now trying to reverse some of the policies, given by Joe Biden, and he's going to spend just 4 years. And even if this, I don't even see it taking effect before that February 19 or thereabout. But the thing is, this issue of reversing executive orders and issuing new executive orders is really going to affect policy making in America. Because if we want to talk about the litany of executive orders that have been issued by Trump in the last 4 or 5 days, we find that I just see a situation where within the next 4 years, Trump and the Attorney General will just be battling barrage of court cases and issues relating to the Constitution and all of that. But since your question is about the birthright and the citizenship, I think this is strictly a constitutional matter, which I think Trump might not succeed, considering that this is a law that has been in existence for over 150 years. So as we hope that the courts will expedite these cases, and already 5 court cases have already been established regarding this executive order, and let's see what happens in the days coming. But all I can say is within the 100 days of Trump in office, we're going to see more and more cases, civil cases, to interpret or to resign some of these executive orders.
All right, let me bring in Melvin. Again, it's a constitutional issue, but it's also a people issue, an American issue. When you look at the poll on this, you might say it's a slim margin. There are those who support the end of putting an end to DACA are 52%, and those who don't support it 48%, which means that you have more majority of Americans saying in support of President Trump. How easy do you think it will be for him to go through, because again, this has to go through a constitutional change. He has a strong support in Congress, strong support in most of the states that are Republican states. Do you think that this will be easy for him if he were to go through the constitutional amendment route?
Well, I'm sad to say that there's a lot of the U.S. system that has been racially based, who somehow felt that black people and brown people and yellow people are the problem here. They're the ones eating up the opportunities. A lot of these people believe that what Trump is doing is almost ordained from God, even. So we're hearing people who have become emboldened, members of Congress who have become emboldened. You haven't heard a peep from them over the last 20 years. Now all of a sudden they're standing up and say, they're mirroring what Trump is saying. So I think what we're seeing here is almost as Trump indicated he wanted to be from the start, was to be a dictator and to be able to push some things through that never ever have been pushed before. So my fear is that the American system now is being held somewhat hostage to this administration, and I think some things are going to get done that we would never have suspected would have got done, say, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. So I'm thinking that in this case, he's going to push the system to the point where they accept what he wants, and we're going to have a constitutional crisis. But the Supreme Court, he seemed to have control of that too. So I'm not optimistic at all at this stage about how this is going to turn out.
All right, so let's move to his foreign policy approach, which for me would be the major conversation, with you both. We understand that he has had a phone call, and I'm trying to just get details of that call, with the Prime Minister of Greenland, asking for that island to be ceded to the U.S. According to members of the Prime Minister's team, it was quite. They describe it as horrendous, but it was quite an aggressive call. And I just wanted to ask you, Dr. Joel, if you think that was seen in terms of his foreign policy approach, if you think that was seen a slightly more aggressive President Trump that we did in his first term.
Yeah, absolutely. I followed the trajectory of the executive orders and all of that. It's definitely what I want to describe as very, very aggressive, And we understand, yes, you have to put America first, but doing so aggressively and with some elements of threats, I think Trump is trying to put American foreign policy in a very different direction. Now, the issue of the Greenland and all of that, even the Prime Minister doesn't have a unilateral decision to make regarding that issue. He has to go through Parliament and all of that. And another area, Trump is trying to take the American foreign policy to a different direction is the withdrawal from the World Health Organization and the Paris Agreement. As of now, it's not really clear the impact that Trump's withdrawal will have on the Paris Agreement, but on the World Health Organization, it's going to have a lot of impact, considering that America is the largest donor to the World Health Organization, a whopping 18%, donation that runs the operations of the World Health Organization. So that might really have a great impact there. And in terms of American foreign policy, what this will accrue to the American state is not really clear at the moment, because I'm sure Trump is just hammering or hinging on the various conspiracy theories, that are emerged, with the issue of the COVID-19 and all of that. And so on that basis, he's trying to take decisions regarding the World Health Organization. And regarding the Paris Agreement, Trump, America at the moment, they're one of the largest drillers of oil. So doing this simply want to, get America to accept responsibility of its contribution to gas emissions. So this foreign policy direction of Trump, for me, is too aggressive. And I'm sure he's doing all of this considering that he will have the backing of the parliament and the Republicans are the majority. And like the other guest said, he has the majority of the Supreme Court. But I think Trump needs to rethink some of this foreign policy direction, considering that he only has 4 years to spend. And what impact that will have on the American state and the domestic politics of the American government is still to be seen. It's just 5 days now. So let's see what happens, because for the Paris Agreement, we're not really sure yet, considering that it will take about a year for the American to completely withdraw from all of that. And I understand that the Attorney General have already initiated the process to do that. But in the long run, let's see what impact it will have. But for the World Health Organization, they're more interested, or they're more concerned about America's backing of the World Health Organization in terms of the funding. But by and large, I think Trump's approach in this second coming is more, more aggressive compared. So he wants to paint a picture like, what I've said has to be done. I've said this in my campaign.
Dr. Joel, if I may quickly come in here, I'm staying with you, but first of all, let me just make a correction. He made a call to the Prime Minister of Denmark, because Greenland is a territory of Denmark. But I wanted to also ask you, Dr. Joel, if you're worried about a strain in relations between the US and the EU because of this myriad of issues coming up. Ukraine is another sticking point, by the way.
Yes, it's going to put a restraint. And like I said, he put a call to the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister doesn't have unilateral authority in that issue. He has to really consult. That's what I'm saying. So though he has put a call to the Prime Minister, and if you look at Trump's time from the first time, you will know he doesn't really have much regard for the EU. But considering that now that we're going to see some sort of changes in the Ukraine-Russia war, given his intervention in that war, I think it's a good thing, considering he has said no more lives should be lost, no more bloodshed, all of these, and he's going to put measures in place. If he was the president in the first place, the war wouldn't have even happened. But at the end of the day, I think Trump's foreign policy, from what I've seen so far, doesn't really put the EU into so much consideration.
And I want to take that to Mr. Melvin Foote. Mr. Foote, Trump has pulled out of, or he said he's pulling America out of WHO. He has put all foreign and humanitarian aids on hold, except for the ones that's going to Israel and Egypt. And that's for the next 3 months to try and examine if it aligns with his foreign policy approach and direction. He's talked about making America great again on the world stage. What impact would all of this have on America's, the hegemony is already declining, but I just wanted to use that word again loosely, hegemony.
Yeah, I think everything I'm hearing on this call from my colleague Eve, and is fully that we're all absolutely aghast at what we're seeing here. I think what Trump is thinking is that he can bully the Europeans, that they will not stand up and support Denmark. They're not going to stand up and support anything that any one country is going to do because the U.S. has so much invested in Europe. He's also talking about the fact that the Europeans have to pay for defending against Russia and this kind of thing. So he's really restructuring the whole world order. And this new world order, as far as he's concerned, as part of the MAGA Republicans are concerned, will be dominated by the United States. And not just the United States as we know it, but it's going to be dominated by white United States. Black people of all stripes over here are being pushed from all kinds of corridors. The whole thing with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're basically decreasing all opportunities for Black people, be it from African immigrant or African American, to have any say in the direction of U.S. policy going forward. So we're in a real fix. I think that the Europeans are going to have to cave in. What Trump is thinking is that Greenland is a white country, that adding more white people to it. He wants to call it the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. So it sounds like, we have hegemony over it. We're in a real fix, and I'm looking at the weeks ahead. I think it's only going to get worse in terms of, we will not have much to say about this new administration and what it's going to do and what it's going to say because of the power that it already has accrued.
what about because again, I mentioned that he has put on hold all foreign aids and all foreign and humanitarian aids to most countries. During the Biden administration tried to Trump-proof the military aids to Ukraine, but I'm just wondering, whether Ukraine would be affected, the impact that this directive would have on Ukraine, or if there is enough, if the Biden administration have put things in place enough to safeguard and Trump-proof Ukraine from all of this flurry of policies.
Well, I think like pulling out of WHO, and this is actually going to kill people who are dependent on the U.S. for AIDS, drugs, and this kind of thing, going to find immediately they will not have access to them. I think on the issue of like climate change, here we are fighting these major wildfires in Los Angeles right now. We know for a fact that this is caused because of human behavior, but yet Trump is saying, drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill oil and make our country richer again, and to heck with the environment, as if the environment could stop, at a border or something, and it cannot. This is something that we as humans have to be concerned about. I think the Europeans know that they either going to have to get in line with Trump. I think it's going to result in stricter policy about African immigration in Europe. It's going to have stricter policies about people who are just the young people getting on boats and just going to Europe trying to look, seeking better opportunities. All of this is on the table right now. I think this next year is going to be absolutely traumatic. And that's why I think the Africa Union, I think that some of the things that we should have been doing all along, organizing the diaspora to be more engaged, all of this is stuff that we should have been doing. We as African people should have been doing to prepare for this new world. But right now, the black world is fragmented, is not working together. And I think that we're going to be on the wrong side of the impact of another 4 years of Donald Trump.
Dr. Joel, where does this leave NATO? Because that's one organization that sort of binds the US and the EU together in terms of, military cooperation.
Well, to Donald Trump, his primary agenda is America first. So, and he's doing that in a bullish manner. And it's considering the issue with NATO. I don't think Trump really pays so much emphasis on that, because he's more interested in maintaining the hegemony of the United States when it comes to the international system. So he's going to do everything possible to ensure that America, exercise that full control, even with NATO. We understand this, the relationship that NATO has with the EU and all of that. But to Donald Trump, it shouldn't be about NATO, it should be about America. Okay? And he's trying to, because to him and to some other conservatives like him, they feel that there's a great decline in the hegemony of the United States as far as the international system is concerned. So the unipolarity of the United States is what matters most to Trump. That's why this foreign policy direction that he's undertaken in the last few days points to that fact. And his approach in ending the war between the US and Russia is not going to come through the agencies, NATO and the United Nations. He's going to want to use, try to use his personal initiative, in my opinion, in trying to meddle in the affairs that happen between NATO, the EU, the war in Ukraine versus Russia, and all of that. So to Donald Trump, all of this, as far as I'm concerned, is secondary. What is most important to him is America regains his hegemonic stand in the international system. And he's doing all of this in an abrasive, let me use the word, bullish manner. So regarding that, maybe in the coming days, he might be told about how to get along with this. But the body language in the last 5 days has shown that Donald Trump is more interested in America maintaining its hegemony and unipolarity than just other issues that had to
Dr. Joel, let me put you on hold. We have just a minute left, and I wanted to give it to Melvin to just get his final thoughts on what to expect this new week. If we're to expect more executive orders, And then if you think that, look, we're going to see a Trump that respects the sovereignty of other nations.
Well, I think, just last night, his defense secretary was confirmed. And many of us see this guy as totally unqualified to lead the U.S. Military. But I think his qualification is that he's totally loyal to Donald Trump. So I think we're going to see some things that we've never seen before in terms of U.S. Disrespecting anything that looks like a world accord. I think the Trade Organization is in trouble. I think the U.S. is going to pull from that. I think the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which is U.S. trade policy toward Africa, is going to be totally affected by all the tariffs that Donald Trump is threatening. So I think that the world is going to be aghast at what we're going to see coming out of the United States, even the short term and in the long term. So I'm not optimistic at all that we as people of color are going to see any benefit coming our way. We're going to see that our communities are more threatened. We're going to see more problems on the border. We're going to find out that a lot of the menial jobs of this country, including picking vegetables out, that kind of thing done by the Latinos, going to cost our food prices to go up dramatically. So I'm expecting prices to skyrocket. And all of that.
Interesting you mentioned the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It's been 25 years waiting for approval from Congress. We'll see how that plays out under President Trump. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Joel Kebie, doctoral researcher in the UK, and Melvin Foot, President, Constituency for Africa, who joined us via Zoom from Atlanta, US. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And that's Standpoint this week. Remember, you can watch a repeat broadcast at 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayu.